guys, it's Kate and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is my second video. I have decided to do a conspiracy theory today, and I was originally going to do true crime one week, conspiracy the next, and so on and so forth, but then I decided to do true crime and conspiracy all in one week. I thought that would be the most fun, the most interesting, and I'm really excited to do it. So this week's video is going to be on the Kurt Cobain conspiracy theory. And this is, of course, that Courtney Love either had him killed or killed him herself. This is, again, another case that I have heavily researched, watched so many documentaries on. I love it, I love it, I love it, and I definitely think that Courtney Love had something to do with it. I'm going to be very upfront about that. This is definitely a conspiracy theory that I wholeheartedly believe in. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get into the actual conspiracy itself, let's just talk about the actual death of Kurt Cobain. So Kurt Cobain was found dead in his Seattle, Washington greenhouse on April 8th, 1994. He actually died on April 5th. An electric employee actually discovered his body. He was there to install some sort of like security system or something like that, and the greenhouse was open, you know, like the windows you could see in pretty easily. And so at first he thought that Cobain was just sleeping, and then he saw blood and called the police from there. And the strange part about that is that a police officer, because Courtney Love, you know, called the police, reported him missing. He was supposed to be in rehab for a heroin addiction and went missing. So his wife, Courtney Love, you know, she got a private investigator, she called the police. So the police and his friend went to go look for Kurt at the house, and he was in that greenhouse and they didn't find him, which is really, really strange. And so, you know, that's where Tom Grant comes in, which is the private investigator that Courtney Love hired, and he is the biggest advocate of this conspiracy theory. To me, he's a pretty believable source because he had insider knowledge. He saw all of this from an inside point of view, and he got to work with Courtney. He was employed by Courtney. So, you know, he could pick up on her vibes, if her emotions were genuine and whatnot. And so all of my information that I need refreshers on, I am actually going to be looking off of Tom Grant's website that he has dedicated to this. He still to this day fights for justice for Kurt. So I bet you're wondering, what was Courtney Love's motive? Why would she go to all of this trouble? The reason behind this is mostly surrounding her and Kurt Cobain's current relationship status. It was heavily rumored that they were in the midst of getting a divorce. And so if they were to get a divorce, basically Courtney Love would have gotten half of Kurt's assets. However, if he died, she would get everything. So that right there is your main motive for doing something like this. And it's so tragic because they have a daughter, Frances. It's so sad that she's just kind of caught in the middle of all of this. But that's pretty much the motive behind this. Tom Grant even goes so far to say that he actually left the rehab center in the first place because he was planning on leaving Seattle and his wife. So if that gives you any insight into that, someone was also using his credit card up until his body was found. So it was after he died, but before his body was found. So that's pretty messed up. I don't know who could have been doing that. I mean, there's no way to say that it was Courtney Love, but Kurt Cobain was actually also in fear for his life. A lot of people speculate that he bought this shotgun after he left the rehab center. That's not true, actually. He bought it before the rehab center, and he bought it for protection. What protection, you might ask? I don't know. he was clearly scared of something. Was that his wife? Was that people that she hired? I don't know. But, you know, the police also said that there were no legible fingerprints found on the shotgun. Not Kurt's, not anybody's. The truth of the matter is the police didn't even check the gun for fingerprints until May 6th, which is almost actually a day over a month after Kurt Cobain died. That's unacceptable police work. I can't even fathom that. That you should at least check for fingerprints. They were so quick to rule it as just a suicide that they weren't checking for things that could point in a different direction, like whatsoever. So there was actually also no suicide note. So this note that they found, they automatically labeled it as a suicide note. However, it was clearly a goodbye note to his fans, that he was leaving the music business, not this planet. You see, this really wasn't a suicide note. Now, there was a small part at the end saying, you know, goodbye to his daughter and his wife, talking about killing himself, but that has been proven to not be Kurt Cobain's handwriting. That was a completely different person's handwriting. I mean, that just looks pretty bad on Courtney's part, that she, you know, that makes it look like she maybe tried to add that in there. I don't know. And then there was a second note. But Courtney didn't tell anybody about it for a really long time. And the second note was written to her and Francis, and it was saying that he was leaving Seattle and the music business. Again, not planning on killing himself, just leaving her. And this is something that isn't reported. I don't think I even saw this in Soaked in Bleach. Maybe I did, but that's pretty crazy. And, you know, clearly that doesn't say, hey, I'm gonna kill myself. That says, hey, I'm leaving you. that still shows intent to keep living. So the most damning evidence of all was that Kurt Cobain had 3 times the lethal dose of heroin in his blood system. Even if you are a heroin addict, that is so much. Heroin works immediately in the bloodstream, and with that amount, he would have been completely incapacitated, and that has been proven by experts. He would not have physically been able to pick up a gun and shoot himself. He would not have been able to pull the trigger. And evidence shows that when he was shot, he was sitting up, so he wasn't standing, he was sitting up, and the gun was so long that he would have had to pull the trigger with his toes in order to shoot himself. If he can't even pull a trigger with his hands, what makes you think he can do it with his feet? It's just not logical. It doesn't make any sense. The police kind of just painted this as a suicide. The coroner had no proof, really, that this was a suicide. However, there was so much evidence pointing to murder, and that was just kind of brushed to the side, and it was labeled a suicide. Another thing to look into is the BBC documentary Kurt and Courtney. And in this documentary, the people conducting it went to this guy, and his name was like El Duce. I don't know, he was a musician of some sort. They went to interview him. He basically told them that Courtney Love offered him 50 grand to whack Kurt Cobain, and he declined. And then he started to say that his friend took that offer, and he almost said the person's name, but then he stopped himself. 2 days later, he was hit and killed by a train. He was hit and killed by a train. I mean, I don't know how much more sketchy this can get, honestly. I have never seen something just so obvious. and in turn infuriating. I mean, there is no justice for this man who was loved by so many people, who had, you know, this young daughter who now really just never gets to know what he's actually like because she was so young when he died. And that's just such an injustice that they couldn't even put whoever did this away, because, I mean, at this point, it's clearly a murder. I mean, somebody did this to him. There's just no way. And Courtney Love is in her huge mansion that is paid for with blood money. And that just blows my mind. It blows my mind that this is still just considered a conspiracy theory. Because at this point, we're looking at facts. We are looking at stone cold facts. It just blows my mind how some people can just walk free. She got to raise her daughter. She gets, you know, money and fame and life. And that is just, you know, she should be behind bars, definitely, because there's obviously something wrong here. Okay guys, so that's all I have today. I really hope you enjoyed it, and you know, like I said at the beginning of the video, I plan on doing true crime and conspiracy on, like, during the week. One on one day, one on the other day. I don't have specific days yet, but yeah. Thanks so much for watching this. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on that little notification bell, and leave a comment down below. Thank you so much.